Marcus Johnson sat in seat 23A, next to the window. The 16-year-old boy looked out at the airport workers loading bags into the plane. This was his first time flying alone, and he felt both excited and nervous. He had saved his money from mowing lawns all summer to buy this ticket to visit his grandmother in Atlanta. "Just stay calm and be polite to everyone," his mother had told him before he left. Marcus touched the small silver chain around his neck that his mom had given him for good luck. He planned to make her proud by handling this trip like an adult. The plane was almost full now. The middle-aged woman with short brown hair sat down in the seat next to him. She gave Marcus a quick smile before pulling out a book to read. "Good afternoon, passengers. Welcome aboard Flight 268 to Atlanta," said a voice over the speakers. "We'll be taking off in about 20 minutes." Marcus put on his headphones and turned on some music to help him relax. He watched as the flight attendant started walking through the cabin, checking that everyone had their seatbelts fastened. There were 3 attendants, 2 men and 1 woman. The woman, who was tall with blonde hair tied back in a tight bun, kept looking at Marcus as she moved around the cabin. When she reached his row, she stopped and stared at him. Her name tag said Patricia. "You need to take those off," she said loudly, pointing at his headphones. Several people turned to look. Marcus quickly removed his headphones. "Sorry about that," he said with a polite smile. Patricia didn't smile back. "And make sure your seat is in the proper position," she added, even though his seat was already correct. The woman sitting next to Marcus looked up from her book with a confused expression, but didn't say anything. After the plane took off, Marcus's ears started to hurt from the pressure change. He remembered his mom saying there was something he could do to help with that, but he couldn't recall what it was. After thinking about it for a few minutes, he decided to ask a flight attendant. He pressed the call button above his seat. A few minutes later, Patricia returned, looking annoyed. "What is it?" she asked in a sharp voice. "My ears hurt from the pressure. Is there something I can do to help that?" Marcus asked. Patricia let out a loud sigh. "Just yawn or chew gum," she said quickly. Then she reached up and turned off his call button without asking if he needed anything else or offering him any gum. The man sitting across the aisle heard this conversation. He leaned over and offered Marcus a piece of gum from his pocket. "Here you go, kid. This should help." "Thank you, sir," Marcus said, taking the gum gratefully. About an hour into the flight, Marcus needed to use the bathroom. He unbuckled his seatbelt and stood up. Almost immediately, Patricia appeared beside him. "Where do you think you're going?" she asked in a loud voice. Many passengers turned to look at them. "Just to the bathroom," Marcus replied, confused by her tone. "The seatbelt sign is on," Patricia said, pointing up at the ceiling. Marcus looked up and saw that the sign had indeed been turned on, though he hadn't heard any announcement about it. "I'm sorry, I didn't notice," he began. "Sit down now," Patricia interrupted him, her voice getting louder, "or there will be consequences." Marcus slowly sat back down, feeling his face grow hot with embarrassment as people stared at him. His heart was beating fast, and he didn't understand why the flight attendant seemed so angry with him when he hadn't done anything wrong. The woman sitting next to him leaned over and whispered, "Don't worry. The seatbelt sign just came on a few seconds ago. You didn't do anything wrong." Marcus nodded and looked out the window, trying to ignore the stares from other passengers. He still had 2 more hours on this flight, and he was starting to worry about what would happen next. 5 minutes later, the seatbelt sign turned off with a soft ding. Marcus waited a little while to make sure it was really okay to get up this time. He looked around and saw other passengers moving freely in the aisle. Carefully, he unbuckled his seatbelt and stood up. "I'll be right back," he said politely to the woman next to him. She nodded with a small smile. As Marcus walked to the bathroom, he could feel Patricia watching him from the front of the plane. He tried to ignore her stare and focused on walking straight ahead. The bathroom was small, but he was glad for a moment alone to gather his thoughts. When he finished and returned to his seat, Marcus froze in shock. Patricia was there, bending over his row and going through his backpack that he had left under the seat in front of him. "Excuse me," Marcus said, his voice shaking a little. "That's my personal bag." Patricia stood up quickly, holding his phone charger in her hand. Several passengers were watching now. "I thought I saw something suspicious," she said loudly so everyone could hear. "It's normal security procedure to check. But you can't just look through my things without asking," Marcus said. He wasn't shouting, but his voice was firm. His mother had taught him to stand up for himself respectfully. "Don't raise your voice at me, young man," Patricia warned, pointing her finger in his face. "I know your type. Causing trouble on my flight is not acceptable." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. What did she mean by your type? He hadn't caused any trouble at all. He was just trying to have a normal flight like everyone else. The woman in the seat next to Marcus stood up. She was short but spoke with confidence. "That was completely inappropriate," she told Patricia. "He wasn't raising his voice at all, and you had no right to search his belongings without permission." "Ma'am, please stay out of this," Patricia said coldly. "This is a security matter. I'm a teacher and I know good behavior when I see it," the woman replied. "This young man has been nothing but polite." Other passengers began to murmur in agreement. An older man across the aisle spoke up. "I've been watching. The kid didn't do anything wrong." Patricia's face turned red. "I need everyone to mind their own business. I am in charge of safety on this aircraft." Marcus felt both scared and angry. He had never experienced anything like this before. With shaking hands, he reached for his phone in his pocket. His mother had made him promise to call her if he ever felt unsafe or unfairly treated. This was definitely one of those times. He turned slightly toward the window for privacy and dialed his mother's number. "Mom," he said quietly when she answered. "Something strange is happening on the plane. The flight attendant keeps singling me out. She just searched through my bag without asking, and she's being really mean to me but not to the other passengers." "Put her on the phone," his mother said. Her voice was calm but serious. Patricia, who had been watching Marcus make the call, stepped forward and reached for his phone. "Phones must be in airplane mode during flight," she snapped, trying to take it from his hand. "My mom wants to talk to you," Marcus said, holding onto his phone firmly. "I don't need to talk to your mother," Patricia said, but several passengers were watching closely now. A man in a business suit spoke up from across the aisle. "Actually, phones can be used once the plane reaches cruising altitude. He's not breaking any rules." Reluctantly, Patricia took the phone from Marcus. She put it to her ear with an annoyed expression. Then, as she listened to what Marcus's mother was saying, her face slowly changed. The color drained from her cheeks, and her eyes widened. What Patricia didn't know was that Tanya Johnson wasn't just any concerned mother. She was one of the top civil rights attorneys in Chicago, with connections throughout the airline industry, and she was recording every word of their conversation. Patricia's hand shook as she held Marcus's phone. The voice on the other end spoke clearly and firmly. "This is Tanya Johnson, attorney at law. I understand you've been harassing my son. I want your full name and employee ID number right now." Patricia swallowed hard. "This is Patricia Winters, flight attendant number 45,892, she said, her voice much softer than before. "Ms. Winters, my son is a minor traveling alone. You have no right to search his belongings without cause. You have no right to speak to him in a disrespectful manner. And you certainly have no right to treat him differently than other passengers. I am recording this call, and I want to speak to your supervisor immediately." Patricia looked around nervously. More passengers were watching now. She lowered her voice. "Ma'am, I was just following standard safety procedures." "Do not lie to me," Tanya interrupted. "I know the airline's procedures very well. My firm represents several airline employees in discrimination cases. Now get your supervisor on this call right now." "The captain is busy flying the plane," Patricia said, her confidence fading fast. "Then this is what's going to happen," Tanya said firmly. "You will return my son's phone to him. You will not approach him again for the remainder of the flight unless he requests assistance. When this plane lands, I will have representatives from your airline's corporate office waiting to speak with both you and my son. Is that clear?" Patricia's face had turned pale. "Yes, ma'am," she said quietly. "Now put my son back on the phone," Tanya ordered. Patricia handed the phone back to Marcus with a shaking hand. She quickly walked away toward the front of the plane. "Mom," Marcus said, putting the phone to his ear. "Are you okay, baby?" Tanya asked, her voice softening. "I'm okay," Marcus said, though his heart was still beating fast. "What did you say to her?" "I just reminded her about proper airline procedures and passenger rights," Tanya said. "Now listen to me carefully. I want you to take a video of your backpack right now to show if anything was taken or moved around. Then I want you to write down exactly what happened, while it's still fresh in your mind. Can you do that for me?" "Yes, Mom," Marcus said. "Good. Now put your phone on airplane mode, but keep it handy in case you need it again. I'm going to make some calls. Someone from the airline will meet you when you land." After they said goodbye, Marcus did as his mother asked. He took a video of his backpack contents and began writing notes on his phone about everything that had happened. The woman sitting next to him leaned over. "That was impressive," she said quietly. "Is your mom really a lawyer?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, she works on civil rights cases." "Well, she's certainly scared that flight attendants straight," the woman said with a smile. "My name is Barbara, by the way. I'm Marcus. Nice to meet you." "Nice to meet you too, Marcus. Listen, I saw everything that happened. If you need a witness statement, I'd be happy to help." "Thank you," Marcus said gratefully. Up at the front of the plane, Patricia was having an intense whispered conversation with the other flight attendants. She kept looking back at Marcus with worry on her face. 15 minutes later, one of the male flight attendants came to check on Marcus. "Is everything okay here?" he asked kindly. "Can I get you anything to drink or eat? It's on the house." "Some apple juice would be nice," Marcus said. "Coming right up," the flight attendant said with a friendly smile. As the flight attendant walked away, Marcus noticed many passengers were giving him supportive looks. An elderly woman across the aisle even gave him a thumbs up. For the next 30 minutes, the flight continued normally. Marcus started to relax a little. Maybe the worst was over. But then the captain's voice came over the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Due to an important situation, we will be making an unscheduled landing in Charlotte, North Carolina. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts. Flight attendants, prepare for landing." A wave of confused murmurs spread through the cabin. Marcus looked out the window in surprise. What was happening now? The plane began its descent toward Charlotte. Marcus gripped his armrests tightly. He had never been in a situation like this before. Was the emergency landing because of what happened with Patricia? He wasn't sure if he should feel scared or relieved. "Don't worry," Barbara said next to him. "This is a good thing. Your mother must have made some important calls." Marcus nodded, though his stomach was full of butterflies. Outside his window, he could see the city of Charlotte coming into view. The plane dropped lower and lower until finally, with a bump and a screech of tires, they landed. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at Charlotte Douglas International Airport," the captain announced. "Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. We have some airline officials who need to board the plane." The passengers started whispering to each other. Many looked at Marcus, some with curiosity and others with supportive smiles. Patricia was nowhere to be seen. After the plane came to a complete stop at the gate, the door opened. 2 men in dark suits and a woman in an airline uniform walked onto the plane. They spoke briefly with the captain near the cockpit. Then the woman with the airline uniform took the plane's microphone. "Good afternoon, passengers. I'm Sandra Peterson, Customer Relations Director for Skyway Airlines. We apologize for this unexpected stop. We're addressing an internal situation that requires immediate attention. Most of you will be continuing on to Atlanta after a short delay. We appreciate your patience and understanding." The two men in suits walked down the aisle directly to where Patricia was standing at the back of the plane. They spoke to her in low voices. Patricia's face was pale, and she kept shaking her head. Finally, she collected her small bag from an overhead compartment and followed the men off the plane. As they passed Marcus's row, one of the men stopped. "Are you Marcus Johnson?" he asked politely. Marcus nodded, suddenly feeling nervous again. "I'm Michael Torres from Airline Corporate Security. When you're ready to deplane, Ms. Peterson would like to speak with you privately." "Nothing to worry about. We just need to hear your side of the story." "Okay," Marcus said in a small voice. Mr. Torres smiled reassuringly. "Your mother is on the phone with our CEO right now. You've got quite a strong advocate in your corner." After Mr. Torres left with Patricia, the captain made another announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be continuing to Atlanta in approximately 1 hour with a new flight crew. You're welcome to deplane and stretch your legs, but please don't leave the gate area." As passengers began standing up and collecting their things, several of them stopped to speak to Marcus. "Good for you, young man," an older gentleman said, patting his shoulder. "That flight attendant was way out of line. You handled it really well," a woman with 2 children told him. A college-age girl smiled at him. "Your mom sounds amazing. Total boss move." Marcus felt overwhelmed by all the attention, but also grateful for the support. Barbara, the teacher sitting next to him, helped him gather his things. "Would you like me to come with you to meet the airline director?" she asked. Sometimes it helps to have an adult present when you're a minor dealing with officials. "Yes, please," Marcus said, relieved at the offer. Together, they walked slowly up the aisle and off the plane. In the jetway, Miss Peterson was waiting with a kind smile. "Hello, Marcus. Thank you for speaking with us. We have a private room where we can talk comfortably." She led Marcus and Barbara to a small conference room near the gate. Inside, there was a large screen on the wall, and Marcus's mother's face appeared on it. She was in her office, dressed in a professional suit, looking both worried and determined. "Marcus, are you okay, honey?" Tanya asked as soon as she saw him. "I'm okay, Mom," Marcus assured her, just a little shaken up. "I've been speaking with Mr. Reynolds, the CEO of Skyway Airlines," Tanya explained. "They're taking this incident very seriously." Ms. Peterson nodded. "Extremely seriously. Discrimination has no place at our airline." "Now, Marcus, can you tell us exactly what happened from the beginning?" Marcus took a deep breath and began to tell his story. He described how Patricia had singled him out from the moment he boarded the plane. He explained each incident in detail: the headphones, the call button, the bathroom visit, and finally the search of his backpack. As he spoke, Mr. Torres typed notes on a tablet. Miss Peterson listened with a serious expression, nodding occasionally. On the screen, his mother watched intently, her lawyer face on. "And you believe she treated you differently than other passengers?" Ms. Peterson asked when Marcus finished. "Yes, Ma," Marcus said. "Other people were wearing headphones, but she only told me to take mine off. And when the seatbelt sign came on, I didn't know because there was no announcement. But she yelled at me like I had broken a big rule on purpose." Barbara spoke up. "I can confirm everything Marcus has said. I was sitting next to him the entire time. Patricia's behavior was completely unprofessional and, in my opinion, discriminatory." "Thank you, Ms." Ms. Peterson paused. "Williams, Barbara Williams. I teach high school in Chicago." Ms. Peterson nodded. "We appreciate your willingness to serve as a witness, Ms. Williams." On the screen, Tanya Johnson leaned forward. "I want to know what steps the airline is taking right now. Has Ms. Winters been suspended?" "Yes," Ms. Peterson confirmed. "Patricia Winters has been removed from duty pending a full investigation. She will not be working on any flights until this matter is resolved." Mr. Torres added, We've already collected statements from the captain and other flight attendants. We're also reviewing the in-cabin video footage. There are cameras on the plane. Marcus asked, surprised. Yes, for security purposes, Mr. Torres explained. They don't record sound, but they do capture video of all areas except the bathrooms, of course. I'd like copies of all footage and statements, Tanya said firmly. Of course, Ms. Johnson. Our legal team will be in touch with you directly, Ms. Peterson assured her. There was a knock at the door, and another airline employee entered with a tray of sandwiches, chips, and drinks. I thought you might be hungry, Ms. Peterson said to Marcus and Barbara. Please, help yourselves. Marcus realized he was actually very hungry. The stress of the situation had made him forget about food. He gratefully took a sandwich and a bottle of water. What happens now? He asked between bites. A new flight crew is boarding the plane as we speak, Ms. Peterson explained. In about 30 minutes, you and the other passengers will reboard and continue to Atlanta. We've upgraded you to first class for the remainder of the journey. Thank you, Marcus said. Additionally, Ms. Peterson continued, we'd like to offer you our sincere apology for your experience today. Skyway Airlines is committed to treating all our passengers with respect and dignity. What happened to you should never have occurred. On the screen, Tanya nodded. Apologies are a good start, but I hope this leads to real changes in how your staff is trained. It absolutely will, Ms. Peterson assured her. In fact, Mr. Reynolds has already spoken with our training department about implementing enhanced diversity and sensitivity training for all flight crews. Marcus felt a mix of emotions. He was glad the airline was taking the situation seriously, but sad that it had happened at all. He had just wanted a normal flight to visit his grandmother. Marcus, his mother said gently, noticing his expression. I'm so proud of you. You stood up for yourself in a difficult situation. You did nothing wrong today. Thanks, Mom, Marcus said, feeling a little better. Mr. Torres handed Marcus a business card. If you think of anything else about the incident, or if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to call me directly. As they finished their meal, Ms. Peterson received a message on her phone. She looked up with a smile. The new crew is ready, and the plane is prepared for boarding. Are you ready to continue your journey to Atlanta, Marcus? Marcus nodded. He was ready to put this behind him and finally get to his grandmother's house. But as he stood up to leave the conference room, he had a feeling that this experience would stay with him for a long time. When Marcus returned to the gate with Ms. Peterson and Barbara, many passengers smiled and nodded at him. Some even clapped. Marcus felt his face grow warm with embarrassment, but he also felt a strange new confidence. He had stood up for himself, and it had made a difference. The new flight crew stood by the gate, greeting passengers as they boarded. The head flight attendant, a middle-aged man with a kind smile, shook Marcus's hand. Welcome aboard, Mr. Johnson, he said. I'm Kevin, your lead flight attendant for the rest of your journey. We're going to take good care of you. Ms. Peterson walked Marcus to his new seat in first class. It was much bigger than his original seat, with plenty of legroom and a wide armrest. Wow, Marcus said, looking around in amazement. He had never been in first class before. Enjoy the flight, Ms. Peterson said with a warm smile. And Marcus, thank you for bringing this situation to our attention. You're helping us become a better airline. Before leaving the plane, Ms. Peterson gave Marcus a thick envelope. These are vouchers for future flights, she explained. We hope you'll give us another chance to show you the level of service all our passengers deserve. Marcus thanked her and settled into his comfortable seat. Barbara waved at him from the aisle as she headed back to economy class. You did good, kid, she called. Enjoy first class. Soon, a flight attendant brought Marcus a glass of apple juice in a real glass, not a plastic cup. Another offered him warm cookies and asked if he needed anything else. The difference in treatment was like night and day. Marcus looked out the window as the plane took off again. He thought about everything that had happened. It had been scary, but something good had come from it. He had learned that his voice mattered, that he could speak up when something wasn't right. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. "Just checking in. How's the new crew?" "They're really nice," Marcus typed back. "I'm in first class. The seats are huge." "You deserve it," his mother replied. "Grandma can't wait to see you. She's so proud. We both are." Marcus smiled and put his phone away as the plane climbed higher into the sky. After the stress of the earlier events, he felt tired. He reclined his seat and closed his eyes. When he woke up, they were starting their descent into Atlanta. The flight attendant, Kevin, came by to check on him. "Sleep well?" he asked. "Yes, thanks," Marcus replied. "We'll be landing in about 20 minutes. Your grandmother called the airline. She's waiting for you at the gate." Marcus was surprised. "She called the airline?" Kevin smiled. "When something like this happens, we make sure family members are kept in the loop. She sounded very happy that you're almost there." As the plane landed in Atlanta, Marcus felt both excited and nervous. What would his grandmother say about everything that had happened? Would she be upset? He needn't have worried. When he walked off the plane, his grandmother was waiting with open arms. She was a small woman with gray hair and bright eyes full of wisdom. She hugged him tightly. "My brave grandson," she whispered in his ear. "Standing up not just for yourself, but for all the people who couldn't speak up before you." "I was scared, Grandma," Marcus admitted. "Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared," she told him. "It means you do what's right even when you are scared." As they walked through the airport together, Marcus noticed people looking at them. Some seemed to recognize him. "Grandma," he said quietly, "I think people are staring at us." His grandmother squeezed his hand. "That's because you're on the news, child." "What?" Marcus stopped walking. "On the news? How?" His grandmother showed him her phone. On the screen was a news website with the headline, "Teens phone call grounds plane. Airline addresses discrimination claims." Marcus stared at the small photo of himself that someone must have taken at the Charlotte airport. He couldn't believe his eyes. "This is bigger than just you and that flight attendant now," his grandmother said softly. "Sometimes one person's stand can start something important." Marcus stared at his grandmother's phone, reading the news story about himself. His hands trembled slightly as he scrolled through the article. "But how did they get this story so fast?" he asked. His grandmother guided him to a quiet seating area away from the busy walkway. "Social media, child." Several passengers posted about what happened on the plane. They had videos of that flight attendant going through your bag. Someone even recorded when you made that call to your mother. Marcus felt overwhelmed. He had just wanted to visit his grandmother, not become a news story. But as he read the comments below the article, he saw many supportive messages. Teens showed incredible maturity, proud of this young man for standing up for himself. This is why we all need to speak up when we see unfair treatment. His phone buzzed with a call from his mother. "Hey, Mom," he answered. "Marcus, have you seen the news?" Tanya asked. "Grandma just showed me. It's kind of scary." "I know, baby. I didn't expect this to go viral so quickly. But listen to me. You didn't do anything wrong. You handled yourself with dignity and respect. I'm getting calls from news stations wanting interviews. We don't have to do any of them if you don't want to." Marcus thought for a moment. "What do you think I should do?" "That's entirely up to you. Your story is already helping people. I've received messages from other parents whose children faced similar situations but didn't know how to respond. Your experience is giving them guidance." After they hung up, Marcus and his grandmother collected his luggage and headed to her car. As they drove through Atlanta, his grandmother told him stories about her own experiences with discrimination when she was young. "Things are better now than they were in my day," she said, "but better doesn't mean perfect. Each generation has to keep pushing for fairness." At his grandmother's house, Marcus found comfort in the familiar smells of her cooking and the warmth of her home. But he couldn't stop thinking about the news story and what his mother had said about helping others. That evening, as they ate dinner, his grandmother's phone rang. It was Tanya again, this time on video call. "Marcus," she said, her face serious but excited. "The airline CEO wants to meet with us tomorrow. They're sending a car to bring Grandma and you to their Atlanta headquarters." "What do they want?" Marcus asked nervously. "They want to talk about making changes to their training programs. They're calling it the Marcus Johnson Initiative, a new approach to prevent discrimination and bias in customer service." Marcus nearly dropped his fork. "They named it after me." His grandmother patted his hand. "Your stand is making waves, child." The next morning, a sleek black car arrived at his grandmother's house. The driver was polite and professional, opening doors for them and treating them with great respect. At the airline headquarters, they were escorted to a large conference room where several important-looking people sat around a table. At the head was an older man in an expensive suit who stood up when they entered. "Marcus, Mrs. Johnson, thank you for coming," he said, shaking their hands. "I'm Robert Reynolds, CEO of Skyway Airlines. What happened on our flight was unacceptable, and we're committed to making sure it never happens again." Mr. Reynolds introduced the others at the table: the head of training, the vice president of customer relations, the chief diversity officer, and several other executives. "We've reviewed all the evidence," Mr. Reynolds continued. "The video footage clearly shows Ms. Winter's inappropriate behavior. She has been terminated from her position with our airline." Marcus felt a mix of emotions at this news. He hadn't wanted anyone to lose their job, but he also understood that actions should have consequences. "But that's not why we asked you here today," Mr. Reynolds said. "We want your help." Marcus looked at the airline executives with surprise. "My help? What can I do?" Mr. Reynolds smiled. "We want you to help us create a new training program for all our staff. Your experience shows us where our current training is failing. Who better to advise us than someone who lived through it?" The Chief Diversity Officer, Dr. Amara Wilson, spoke up. "Marcus, your perspective as a young person of color traveling alone is incredibly valuable. We want to make sure all passengers feel safe and respected on our flights." Marcus's grandmother squeezed his hand. "This is a big opportunity, child." "I don't know what to say," Marcus admitted. "I'm just a regular kid." "Regular kids can make extraordinary changes," Dr. Wilson said kindly. "We're not asking you to do this alone. Your mother would be involved as well, bringing her legal expertise, and we have professionals who would handle the technical aspects. We just need your voice and your honest input." Marcus thought about other kids like him who might face similar situations. He remembered how scared and alone he had felt when Patricia singled him out. If he could help prevent that from happening to someone else, shouldn't he try? "Okay," he said finally. "I'll help." The executives looked pleased. Mr. Reynolds continued, "There's one more thing. We'd like to offer you a special position with the airline, Youth Ambassador for Passenger Rights. It would involve occasional meetings and reviewing materials, but we can work around your school schedule." Marcus's eyes widened. "Is that a real job?" The executives laughed warmly. "Yes, it's a real job with real pay," Mr. Reynolds confirmed. "We believe young people should be compensated for their time and expertise." Later that day, back at his grandmother's house, Marcus video called his mother to tell her everything. She had already spoken with the airline's legal team and was reviewing the contract they had offered. "This is a big deal, Marcus," Tanya said. "They're serious about making changes, and they're offering you a good compensation package for your time." "Mom, I'm going to be making more money than some of my teachers," Marcus said, still amazed by the offer. "You earned it," she replied. "But remember, this will take work and commitment." Over the next few days, Marcus enjoyed his time with his grandmother, while also beginning his new role. He had video meetings with the airline's training team and shared his experience in detail. He reviewed training materials and offered suggestions about what might help flight attendants understand the impact of their actions. Word of the Marcus Johnson initiative spread quickly. Other airlines began calling Tanya, asking if Marcus would consult on their training programs too. News stations wanted interviews, and social media was full of supportive messages. One evening, while helping his grandmother make dinner, Marcus received an unexpected email. It was from Patricia Winters, the flight attendant who had been fired. "Should I open it?" he asked his grandmother nervously. "That's up to you," she said, "but sometimes the hardest messages are the ones we need to read most." With shaking hands, Marcus opened the email. "Dear Marcus, I'm writing to apologize for my behavior on the flight. There is no excuse for how I treated you. After losing my job, I've had time to reflect on my actions and the biases I didn't know I carried. I'm not asking for forgiveness or for my job back. I just wanted you to know that you've changed how I see the world, and for that, I thank you. Sincerely, Patricia Winters." Marcus read the email twice, not sure how to feel. He showed it to his grandmother. "She's learning," his grandmother said softly, "and that's all we can ask of anyone." That night, as Marcus prepared for bed, he thought about how much had changed in just a few days. From a scary experience on a plane to helping create change for thousands of future passengers. He never expected his first solo flight would turn out like this. 6 months had passed since Marcus's flight to Atlanta. He was now back in school in Chicago, but his life had changed in ways he never expected. The Marcus Johnson initiative had been fully implemented at Skyway Airlines. All staff members went through the new training program, which included videos of Marcus telling his story and explaining how it felt to be singled out and treated unfairly. Flight attendants learned better ways to handle difficult situations and how to recognize their own biases. As youth ambassador for passenger rights, Marcus worked on school holidays and some weekends. He spoke at airline training sessions and even gave a speech at an industry conference. His mother attended these events with him, proudly watching her son grow into a confident young advocate. One Tuesday morning, Marcus's social studies teacher made an announcement to the class. "Everyone, please open your textbooks to page 215. Today we're discussing modern civil rights movements." When Marcus opened his book, he was shocked to see his own story included in a section about everyday people making a difference. There was even a small picture of him next to the text. His classmates turned to look at him with new respect in their eyes. "Marcus, would you be willing to share your experience with the class?" his teacher asked. Standing at the front of the classroom, Marcus felt nervous but proud as he told his story. His classmates listened with interest and asked thoughtful questions. Even the students who had never paid much attention to him before were engaged. "The most important thing I learned," Marcus concluded, "is that one person really can make a difference. I was just trying to protect myself, but it turned into something much bigger." After school that day, Marcus received an email from Skyway Airlines. They wanted him to be part of a special ceremony at their headquarters the following month. The airline had created a new customer service award named after him, the Marcus Johnson Excellence in Equality Award, to be given each year to employees who showed exceptional fairness and respect to all passengers. That weekend, Marcus flew to Atlanta to visit his grandmother again. This time, the experience was completely different. The gate agent welcomed him by name. The flight attendants were friendly and professional to everyone. Many of the staff members wore small pins with MJI on them, representing the Marcus Johnson initiative. As Marcus settled into his seat, an older flight attendant stopped by. "Are you Marcus Johnson?" she asked with a warm smile. "Yes, ma'am," Marcus replied. "I went through your training program last month," she said. "I wanted to thank you. I've been flying for 20 years, and your story made me see things I never noticed before. You're changing how we treat people, one flight at a time." During his visit, Marcus and his grandmother went to a local community center where he had been invited to speak to a group of young teens. Some of them had seen him on the news or read about him online. They treated him like a celebrity, asking for selfies and autographs. "I'm not famous," Marcus told them. feeling embarrassed by the attention. "Yes, you are," one young girl said. "You showed us that we don't have to just accept being treated badly. We can speak up." On his last evening at his grandmother's house, Marcus sat on the porch swing, thinking about everything that had happened since that first flight. His phone buzzed with a text from Barbara Williams, the teacher who had sat next to him on the plane. "Just saw you in the airline magazine. So proud of what you've accomplished. Remember the scared boy on that flight? Look at you now, changing the world." Marcus smiled and looked up at the stars. He had never planned to become an advocate or role model. He had just been a kid trying to visit his grandmother. But sometimes, the most important journeys take us to places we never expected to go. His grandmother joined him on the porch, wrapping a warm shawl around his shoulders. "You know what I'm most proud of?" she asked. "What's that, Grandma?" "That you didn't let one bad experience make you bitter. You turned it into something good for everyone. That's real strength." Marcus nodded, watching a plane's lights cross the night sky. His journey had only just begun.